Finally, we are ready to develop some JUnit test cases for our counter problem. The first one I would like to show to you, you can see it's a JUnit test with a test tag, is how we can do the increment after the creation. So is this a legal usage or illegal usage of the increment method? It should be legal. Let's take a look. So we can see we got a counter object. Oh, you know what? Maybe easier for me to illustrate it on the iPad over here. So what we have is we got a counter variable initialized to be 0, and then we are trying to say assert equals. Think about what's the counterpart in the console tester. In the case of console tester, what we have to do is we have to print out this value of c.getValue and then to examine that value on the console by our eyes manually. But in this case, we can simply say c.getValue compare with in the minimum value, they should be equal. In this case, 0. Right? Notice that. Let me write it down. It's very important concept. So you can see this part here will be automated once you define that over here. It will just be executed automatically every time you try to run the JUnit test method. On the other hand, what about the counterpart? So the counterpart in console tester. Okay, it will be, we're gonna say system.out.println. You're gonna say, well, you can say c.getValue over here. In that case, of course, a method call. In that case, you have to examine by your eyes over here. You gotta examine manually that 0 is printed to the console. So in even this simple assertion here, we can already see the great advantage of using automated assertion in JUnits as opposed to manual comparison and print out into the console, right? So that's again worth emphasizing. And what's the logic over here? The logic really is over here. We are saying that we are trying to execute c.increments over here, c.increments. And in this particular case, do we expect some value too big exception to be thrown? In this case, no. So here, value too large exception not expected. If it is not expected, so that means we should really expect to really go to the normal flow of execution, go to the next line, and then compare the value after increments. It should be matching 1. On the other hand, if somehow the flow was interrupted over here and go to the catch block and the value too large exception was thrown, in that case, it should be a failure. So this is your first use of the failing assertion, right? If we can reaching this line, reaching this line means the value too big exception, the value too large exception thrown unexpectedly. Unexpectedly. Right? In that case, we should really fail the test case. Remember, one of the criteria for your test case to fail, if there's any assertion failure, and the fail assertion will just simply fail immediately, right? So that's kind of the logic. And of course, this is just the same fragment of code. I just want to tell you that. So this is our expected behavior. For the test case, right? So either you will go for the normal flow or you will go for the abnormal flow. In the case you go for the abnormal flow, you will just go to the catch part, which I already illustrated. If you go to the normal one, let me just again highlight the execution flow. Both of them will go for this one here, assert equals over here, and then go for try and go for this. And in the case of correct implementation, we'll simply just go to this part over here, get value, and then we're gonna bypass the rest and simply go to the end of the test method, right? So that's a normal flow. The abnormal flow goes like this. We still have to create a counter objects and do this assertion over here, and then we'll go for the try block and go for the method execution, and then in the case of incorrect implementation, the flow will be disrupted and we go to the catch. and then execute this fail assertion here, and then after that we'll go to the end of the method. So that's really an important comparison for you to make. So that's the first test case I want to show to you, which we didn't do in the console tester. But at least you should really understand how to have this kind of test case where the exception is not expected. But for console tester number 1, console tester number 2, the exception was expected. Okay. And you can read through the points which I just illustrated. Let's now don't lose the big picture. What we just did, we're simply doing this particular manual usage pattern by using the iterative console tester, right? But we definitely don't want to do it manually. We want to automate the test once we define the test assertions. Let's see the second example, right? Automation is exactly the rationale behind using JUnits. Once you define the test methods and assertions, once and for all, you can always use them for regression testing.